Dr. Seuss's Cat in the Hat, Between the Lions, Fraggle Rock. What do they have in common? A strong connection to the Isles of Bermuda. The various roles taken on in these and other productions by Bermudian Michael K. Frith have ranged from illustrator and conceptual designer to art director and executive producer. From summer jobs at Preview magazine and generating witty content for his college magazine, Michael springboarded towards larger productions, all the while drawing on his inherent talent and island roots. Our production team headed to New York City to find out a little more.
What would you say were the biggest influences in Bermuda?
There are a lot of people who asked me where I learned to draw and who in Bermuda, would have been the largest influence on me. And I always reply, Mrs. Birdsey. And they go, no, you mean Mr. Birdsey, Alfred Birdsey. I said, no, I never knew Mr. Birdsey. But Mrs. Birdsey, his mother, used to run a used magazine shop in Washington Lane. And I haunted the place because there was nowhere to kind of find visual input in Bermuda when I grew up. There was obviously no television, and if there was any art on display, nobody ever told me about it. So I was, in retrospect, really just hungry without knowing it for any kind of visual stimulation. Needless to say, being a kid, I found it largely in comic books. And if you wanted to find old comic books in Bermuda, you went to Mrs. Birdsey's shop in Washington Lane, and that's where I lived. I came right out of college and went into Random House as an editor, as my interests were both in drawing and design and in writing and editing. I found a very, very exciting place in doing kids' books, which combine all of those different elements in such interesting ways. And very early on, and one of the reasons I went to Random House, I started working with Dr. Seuss, and I spent several years, close to 10 years, I think it was, working with Ted Geisel, was his actual name. And we basically had a division of Random House that was ours called Beginner Books, which did all the Cat in the Hat books and so on. And he was the president, and I was the editor-in-chief, and we had a secretary. And that was the division of Random House, and it was great. What do you think?
That's great. That's wonderful.
That's all you can say?
Yes, that's all I can say.
You mean a talking camel, and all you can say is, that's wonderful? It isn't like you've had a kind of transforming experience here? You're not...
No,
didn't do it for you. Huh? And through another chain of kind of wild coincidences, I ended up as the first editor of Sesame Street books when they started coming out. I'd gotten to know the guy who was the first director of the series, and he introduced me to the people there. And through that, I got to know Jim Henson, and Jim, right from the beginning, seemed to want me to become part of his organization, and I resisted him for a couple of years because I loved what I was doing. I really did. But I just felt, with the books, we were reaching hundreds of thousands of kids, and with television, particularly with the kind of really innovative stuff that Jim was doing and that was happening at Sesame Street, and that certainly we all saw the potential of Muppets expanding into in other areas. We'd be reaching millions of kids, and it just became too interesting to not do. So I ended up moving over to Muppets and spent another 20 years there.
While he gave much due credit to the puppeteers who he described as geniuses and their abilities to bring his sketches into living, breathing form, Michael's talents and contributions undoubtedly helped create and shape the Muppets, Fraggles, and other personalities that continue to educate and entertain around the world. Most recently, Michael and his wife, Kathy Mullen, who was also part of the original Henson team, have been busy applying their talents to more directly humanitarian ends.
The first question was, what can we do for Afghanistan? We were put in touch with a guy who had just come back from Afghanistan, and one of the big problems that he was made aware of when he was there was the landmine problem. It started with a very simple thing. Could Kathy help him by repairing a puppet that he was using to talk to kids in some of these areas, just to get their attention? And that grew into the idea of creating a whole new charity, an NGO. The name of the group is No Strings. We developed this show around this character, Chichi Kalin, the little carpet boy, who is magically brought to life and needs to learn the lessons of landmine safety. He goes out into the countryside, and of course, being made of carpet, we're able to literally blow him up, which we need to do to teach the kids the lessons they need to learn. We did a little pilot in Sri Lanka about a year ago to talk to kids who'd been through the tsunami. We're right up to here right now in developing a series of 5 short pieces for Indonesia. There are a number of enormous issues that we still need to address, HIV/AIDS and malnutrition, and on and on it goes. But what we are doing now is we're just beginning to be able to build an organization to support this. We're starting to bring in our amazing and extraordinarily talented friends who are in this world of production and puppetry and design and so on, so that as No Strings grows, these people will be able to move into these different projects. It's really very exciting to see these wonderfully talented people putting their great ability and experience in the service of helping these kids all over the world.
Now, is this a girl or a boy?
I got a beard. What? Come on. Boy.